You're listening to The Switch. I'm your host, Stephanie Shaw. Hey, welcome to The Switch. I'm Stephanie Shaw. I'm a multi-certified holistic nutrition coach who, after finding no success with the 18 doctors and 2 world-renowned healthcare facilities I visited, decided I needed to make a switch and take my health into my own hands. Now I'm obsessed with you getting hormonally balanced and emotionally aligned. This podcast is about education, empowerment, and simple no-cost strategies you can implement right now. I'm so excited to be here with you to talk about all things health, beauty, clean living, and mindset. Ready to take your mind and body to the next level? It's time to make the switch. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Switch. I am so excited today that I have Chelsea Zainea with me. You guys, if you listen to the podcast for a while, you're like, why is she always talking about finance when this is a health-related podcast? It's because you have to keep your finances healthy along with your body. It's so important. So you can be exercising, eating right, but you still have that stress. A lot of times money can cause that stress. And Chelsea is going to help us figure out how not to be stressed about money. Right, Chelsea?
Right. I love it. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to have you here. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So my background is in accounting and finance, and really my drive to succeed with money goes way back from when I was a kid. So my parents really struggled with money when I was a kid. I remember hearing them fight about money all the time, laying in bed at night as a 5th grader, listening to them fight about money. And ultimately they divorced. And my mom just kind of always struggled with money throughout that time. And it wasn't for lack of trying. She was and is a really hard worker. It's just that money is hard for some people, and we all learn differently. And so then when it was time for me to go to college, I was kind of a little lost on what I wanted to do. And my mom suggested that I become a CPA because my aunt's sister was a CPA and she made a lot of money. And at that time, making a lot of money was really appealing to me because I just knew that I didn't want to live how we were living and the constant stress and fear of never having enough. I didn't want to live like that anymore. Right. And I also really love the idea of helping people with money. And so I did take an accounting course senior year, and it really jived with me. I liked it. So I went on to college at Bowling Green State University, which we have in common there.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And it was while I was in college that I first read a personal finance book. And that's when I really learned about intentional spending and living with your means. And it's not all about how much money you make. It's how you treat your money and money mindset and all of that. So I got really into finance at that time. And this was not before, though. I was already in student loan debt at this point, as was my husband. So we did start our lives in debt. And I can totally relate to seeing that number and feeling the stress and the overwhelm from it. So I don't want people to think like, oh, I've always been good at money. No, I went through the same thing you went through. I can totally relate. After that, we did move to Texas, and I did go on and get my CPA. And I've worked in both public and corporate accounting throughout the years. I still work in corporate as well. And you just don't get that fulfillment that you get when you're truly helping somebody. I really missed that helping people. And I've always throughout the years read about personal finance and helped people on the side as a hobby. So when I moved back to Ohio, I was able to keep my corporate job and work remotely, which saved me a couple hours a day. So that's how I decided to go ahead and do this business and help people on the side. And I've just really enjoyed it.
And I'm so grateful for people like you. You mentioned that briefly, money mindset. So a lot of the way that we think about money, we treat money, we react to money is based on the way that we were raised. It's our beliefs. Talk to us a little bit about money mindset and the impact it can have on your finances, whether positive or negative.
Oh, for sure. Mindset plays such a huge part in it. And you'll hear people say, success with your money is 80% behavioral and 20% practical knowledge. And I so believe that to be true. It just plays a huge part in both being successful with money and in business for that matter. So whether your thoughts are subconscious or not, they're what's driving your behavior. So it's what's driving your decisions around saving and spending and handling your money. And so all these messages that you've internalized about money over the years is what's kind of driving that behavior now. And so many of us come from a place of not being wealthy when we were young, which then creates this scarcity. And I've worked on that a lot myself. I've had my own coach on that. Just the scarcity mindset of there's never enough. I don't have enough. What if we run out of money? What if we don't save enough? All of that. Also thoughts like I'm not good with money, or people with money are greedy. Thoughts like that all play into how we treat money. And when we think that way, then we don't have it. That's what happens. So we really want to do is come from a place of abundance and appreciation, and having thoughts like, I can learn how to learn how to do well with my money. I can learn to take control. I can learn how to build a business. These thoughts are what's going to really change our behavior.
Yeah, I love that. And as women, often our mindset even takes a deeper dive. Do you know what I mean? Like we shouldn't have this type of business, or we have that scarcity mindset around taking the risks involved. Right. Yeah. So I looked on your Facebook page. I was doing a little snooping. It's an awesome page, as a matter of fact. It's called Peak Financial Wellness, you guys, if you want to check it out. And I saw a stat that said only 2% of businesses that generate $1 million per year are owned by women. So why do you think that is?
I think there's a cultural factor in that we're still recovering from staying at home with our kids all those years and not being in business. So we are catching up. It's just slower. I also think there is a huge deal with women and risk adversity. We're more likely to be scared to take risks. Whenever I work with couples, it's usually women who need to have that higher emergency fund. We're afraid to take risks. We need to know that we have money. So I think that's we're afraid to invest in our businesses. We're afraid to take chances. So I think that really plays a part into that. But I think we can learn and take calculated risks. So I think that's where we need to move.
So talk to me a little bit about calculated risks and how can we get there?
Yeah. So I really emphasize planning ahead with your money. So looking ahead and being really intentional with your spending. So the method of budgeting that I teach is called the plan ahead method. And I do it in Google Sheets. And we're really seeing what choices we make now, how that's going to play out in our bank account. We want to plan ahead and know that we have this amount of money to spend, or this amount of money to invest, or whatever. We don't want to just guess. We want to actually play it out. Look, just see what's going to happen. Forecast those revenues, see how it's going to look, and really plan ahead and be intentional with your spending. Like, it's okay to spend money if you want to spend money. Just know that you've planned ahead and it fits into your budget, and that you're okay with whatever you're giving up as well. Because I was reading a book called Free to Focus by Michael Hyatt the other night, and he was talking about time, but time and money have so many, correlations. Right. And he was saying, women especially, we have trouble saying no to things. We want to say yes to everything. But by saying yes, we're automatically saying no to something else. Wow. So when you're saying yes to spending your time on something or spending your money on something, you're saying no to something else. So as long as you're okay with that, then it's okay. But really playing out these different scenarios and planning it well is key.
Yeah, I like that. And I know you're from the School of Profit First as well, correct?
Yes, yeah, I do love Profit First.
Yeah, that's a book that we have in common that we've both read. Is that part of the work that you do with women? So I want folks to reach out to you, of course, and I want to know, tell me a little bit more about how your procedure works when you work one-on-one with your clients.
Okay, so I work with people one-on-one, and I really like to customize and meet people where they're at. I don't think that there's one approach that works for everybody. And so whether it's Dave Ramsey, whether it's Profit First, any of those, I really like to customize and do what works for the client. So I kind of modify all of these approaches, and we'll I like to start out from, a big overview. Where do you want to be in 10 years? Okay. So then to get there, where do we want to be in 3 years? Okay. Then to get there, what do we need to do this year? And then break it down into the quarter. And then in order to do that, this is what we need to do. And then we'll start there and build out your budget or your financial plan. Some people like to call it a spending plan. I know budget really brings negative thoughts, so I try not to say budget a lot, but it's a budget or a spending plan. So we're always at least planning out the next 13 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So we'll start that way. And I'll meet with people weekly at first, and then we'll build up their confidence, we'll build up their skills, and then we'll move to bi-weekly. And then eventually they're doing it on their own. But that's how I really start out, with a big overview, and then we're going to deep dive and figure out what we need to do specifically.
I like that, because a lot of times, a person may sit there, they're like, oh, I know how to do this. I've created a budget a million times. But you bring that a couple of things. You bring your financial knowledge to the conversation, and also that level of accountability, because I can write 5,000 different budgets and have a million spreadsheets. But if I'm not being held accountable to them, or I don't know how to do the projections correctly, or what's the best way to save and how much to take out for taxes if I'm a business owner, that works against me in some way. So I like the fact that you help women make those plans, and you act as an accountability partner. So it helps them stay motivated, and it helps them stay on track.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, you definitely do. People will be motivated at first, and then around a month too, your motivation you have a little slump there. So getting people over the initial humps and then on their own to where they're really confident, and building that confidence is really key.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about fears and struggle that people have as it relates to money. I work primarily with divorced women. So have you had that opportunity? Like, when someone comes to you with that scarcity mindset, or they're fearful about money, or they're struggling through it, what are some additional mindset tips or tools that you give them to help them get past that?
I think the key really with mindset is realizing that you're even having those thoughts. Sometimes they're subconscious. Sometimes women don't even realize that they're thinking that, so really asking the why and getting down to the thoughts. And then small steps like gratitude, like thinking about the things that you're grateful for every day, and the money that you do have, and, working on changing that mindset. And I love, I don't know if you're familiar with the Life Coach School podcast, but they have some great tips on, how to change your thoughts, because you can't go from believing I'm not good at money to I'm great at money. Your thought doesn't go like that. So you kind of have to get behind that and take those baby steps to get to that thought. And so I've worked with my own coach that's really helped me get there with building a business. And I definitely recommend that. Also, a lot of fear just comes from the unknown. So many people are afraid of what they're going to see. And so they keep their head in the sand. It's called the ostrich effect, or money avoidance. They don't even want to know. And it really just perpetuates the problem. And the best thing to do is just face it and see what you're dealing with. And even if you don't like what you see at first, taking a look at it is really going to put you in a power position, because then you're going to be able to make the changes you need to make and put a plan in place to move forward.
I love that. And so I know I had asked about mindset already, but that's why I brought it up again, because it's so important. It's so important to help you move forward in every aspect of your life. So your health and your finances.
Definitely with health and wellness. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So what did you we got, a couple people in the country, just a few of us, a few people rather, got stimulus checks. So what did you tell your clients to do with that money?
I'm never going to tell somebody what they should do. I'm going to tell them to make sure they plan ahead for whatever they choose to do. That's awesome. Yeah, whether you want to spend it and stimulate the economy, or maybe you want to save it and you have some uncertainty coming up that you don't know, you need to set it aside. That's great, but plan ahead. So put it in a spreadsheet, see what that's going to do. And maybe you spend part of it, maybe you save part of it. There's, any combination of things that you can do, but the key is really deciding what you're going to do ahead of time and not just letting that money disappear.
Yeah. I like, I've heard that make your money work for you instead of you working for your money. Yes. Yeah. And that sounds exactly like the advice that you're giving. I love that. Let's say that, so it's tax season when we're recording this. It may not come out for a couple of weeks, but tax season seems like it just goes on and on now.
Yeah, it keeps getting extended, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But let's say that you're talking to one of your clients, and they are getting ready to sit down with their accountant. Two questions in here. How should they come prepared for that conversation? And also, how should they be preparing throughout the year for that conversation?
Okay, so I see so many solopreneurs wait until the end of the year to try and pull their numbers together for their accountant. But really, you should be using those numbers to help yourself and grow your business. It's, yes, your accountant needs them, but there is so much power in having those numbers and seeing where you're at to be able to move forward. And I'm sorry, my screen blipped there for a second.
No problem.
But there's so much power in looking at your numbers and having them throughout the year. So I definitely advise to keep up with your numbers at least monthly and know where you're at. And then you'll already have that information when you go to your accountant. And then for individuals, there's not a lot you can do until the end of the year. You're not going to get your W-2 and your forms until then, but really go with questions and be prepared, because planning ahead is really key with tax planning too. And you want to work with a tax person who will really sit down with you and look ahead at where you're headed and see, okay, maybe if you're an individual, you need to withhold more throughout the year. Or maybe if you're a business, you need to consider electing to be an S Corp because it's going to be more tax advantageous in the future. But you really want to work with somebody who will engage with you and answer your questions and really help you plan.
Do you think that as a solopreneur that maybe, so let's say last year I worked a regular 9 to 5 in corporate America, and then this year I'm a solopreneur. Is this an opportunity for me to look for a different accountant, maybe someone that maybe understands solopreneur more, or should I just work with that accountant in this new realm? Because a lot of times I'll hear, oh, I was able to write off this, or I look at things differently now because I have someone that understands my particular niche. Any advice on that?
I would say if you're ever, as an accountant myself, I don't do tax returns, but as an accountant myself, sometimes it's easy to get stuck in the details and kind of lose that customer focus. Mm-hmm. And you really want to work with someone who is answering your questions and talking to you in a way that you can understand. You don't want to be working with someone who's talking over your head all the time or isn't willing to take the time to meet with you and talk with you. So if you feel like any of that's going on at any time, it's time to switch accountants. You really want someone that's going to sit down with you, look ahead, and give you advice before it happens. It's called proactive accounting. We want to be proactive rather than reactive and find out, well, if we would have elected to do this or we would have done this differently, we could have saved a lot of money. That's not what you want to hear at the end of the year. You know that before you start. So yes, definitely at any point in time, if you feel like you're not getting your questions answered or they're not spending enough time with you, then for sure it's time to switch accountants.
Yeah, I like that. So I hope folks hear the parallel. So I started off the conversation with I know it's health and wellness, but finance makes sense. So now when you're summing that up, find the person that is going to talk to you, listen to you, give you the best advice. It's the same thing that we say with your healthcare provider. If that healthcare provider isn't providing you with the information that you need to help you feel better, find someone else. So it's the same thing here. You're paying that person and you want someone that is aware of what's going on in your finances and is there to help you. I love that. Someone that's proactive, not reactive. Yeah. So I always ask folks to give a tip, some type of advice that people can use, free advice that they can walk away from the podcast and immediately implement. What would you have for listeners?
Oh, so many things. So I would say if you are an individual receiving a paycheck, try budgeting by your paycheck and not by month. And that really allows you to time your expenses with when you have the money, and it helps you prioritize your bills. So that's really helpful for my paycheck people. There are so many tips. Another
keep going. We want to hear them all.
Another thing for my solopreneurs is to plan, everybody plan ahead, but really for solopreneurs, plan ahead. Look at next month. Look at what expenses are coming up. Do you have enough money to cover everything? Think about things that aren't regular, because when people think about budgeting, they think about their recurring bills and they automatically, it's easy for them to write those down. But what they don't think about are those non-recurring things that come up, which I call whammies, like repairs or a piece of equipment you didn't think about needing, or maybe a tax bill that you should have known about but didn't, or whatever it is. So look ahead. Is it April? Is it tax time? Do you need to start thinking about that? and just start planning for those things that are coming.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I always ask my guests, because the podcast's called The Switch, what is the one switch that made you the person that you are today?
Mm. Again, I would say definitely within the business realm of things, the mindset, switching from us, because I came from a childhood with not a lot of wealth and having that scarcity mindset. So switching from scarcity to abundance has been a challenge for me, but it's paying off. I mean, in everything across my life. And so if I can just tell you one thing to get under control, it's definitely your mindset. And so if you need to work with a coach, work with a coach. It's great.
I like that a lot. Tell everyone how they can get in contact with you, Chelsea.
Well, my website is peakfinancialwellness.com. I'm also on Facebook. And I believe my email and phone number is all on my website. You can find it there, peakfinancialwellness.com, PEAK, financialwellness.com. And then I also have a free Facebook group where I'll do it's motivational and little money tips here and there. And that's Master Your Money Tribe.
Awesome. We love it. And I'll make sure that information is below for everyone. I want to thank you so much for spending time with us today. The information you provided was so helpful. And I totally agree with what you said. If you're starting with the mindset, you can accomplish anything at all.
Mm-hmm. It's the driving force behind everything else.
It sure is. Thank you so much, Chelsea. Everyone, here's to your health. I am so excited for you because you just finished another episode of The Switch, which means you are the fierce person I already knew you were. If you're ready to join an exclusive group of other fierce high performers like you, a group where you can bounce ideas off one another and ask questions, be sure to join our exclusive Facebook community. You can find the link below.